in a world. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
This is Argel Talk Podcast, episode number 1, with Jake, Ben, Gray, and Eric. Good evening, gentlemen.
Hello.
Oh, wow, that was mildly sensual, and I like it.
Yeah, a little bit. Really tickles the ear canals.
Yeah.
It's funny you
Almost
should
ran
mention
off the
that. I
road
just
here.
cleared mine out. Wonderful. Gotta stay clean.
Yeah.
All right. So tonight we're going to kind of go over a couple of topics, but one of the big things that came out this week was rules finally for Argel Tal.
And honestly, the name of the podcast and him coming out was a complete coincidence. We did not plan this.
Yeah,
The only reason that we're covering him at all.
The name was kind of a bad pun from a while back. I would actually be genuinely surprised if we're the first ones to even think about it.
I mean, probably
I don't know.
not.
Somebody Google search it and see if it comes up other than us.
I mean,
I'm not. Okay. Oh, yeah, I'll do that. Maybe that's
I
something
will-
we should have done
Yeah,
before.
you're ready for the copyright strikes.
in
Yeah.
before copyright strikes. I mean,
We're about to get a.
Well, it's not on the first page of Google, so we should be fine.
I
Thank-
reckon we won't get a C&D from Games Workshop anytime soon. So
I mean, we probably. Well, I definitely will, but for different reasons.
C and D's and nuts.
I mean, it's about right.
So, yeah. So
that
I
was too
mean,
hot
so
for radio.
completely coincidental that the name of the podcast coincides with the release of the Argel Tal model and his rules. But if you're not super familiar with Argel Tal, and I will admit that I am not, I'll read you the quick blurb that came out with his data sheet. Argel Tal was among the first to gaze into the madness of the Eye of Terror, and in doing so was forever damned when that dark abyss gazed back into him. Held as a prime example of his Primarch's intentions for the future of humanity, a symbiotic fusion of human soul and demonic powers, he and his brothers and the Gal Vorbak would go on to play an instrumental role in the galactic tragedy that befell humanity. His counsel helped Lorgar solidify his understanding of the effects of the powers of the Empyrean could have had on the physical form of a legionary, and he was equally venerated and envied among the ranks of the Word-bearers as one who stood in glorious favor of their malicious newfound gods. That was an awkward sentence, and I'm sorry. One of the first of the 17th Legion to don the crimson heraldry of betrayal, Argel Tal was present at multiple pivotal events in the Horus Heresy, from the Black Sands of Istvan V and the Dropsite Massacre to the far reaches of the Eastern Segmentum and the Shadow Crusade. The so-called Crimson Lord was a blight upon the Imperium who sent uncounted loyalist souls screaming into the hellspace of the warp with unmatched zeal and determination.
Right. So what makes Argel Tal a particularly interesting release is that he may not be the first, but he's definitely one of the most popular characters who are not originated from the Forge World Horus Heresy Black books, but rather from the actual Black Library novels. He appears first in The First Heretic and later on in Betrayer, rather.
Oh, nifty. I did not even know that.
I had a feeling he was in there, but I haven't read either of those. I'm not gonna lie.
Totally makes
Some
sense. I mean,
books.
from a model standpoint, like I really dig the way that the model looks. Basically he is he's like the lord of the possessed space marines. So looks like he's wearing Mark IV battle plate with the word bears symbol on his chest, and he's just breaking out of it. Like it can barely restrain the demon flesh beneath it, so it's all cracked and ruined. Like his spinal column has basically fused with the power pack on his back, and it's coming out. His gigantic talons have half of a of a bisected ultramarine in it, and he's got these wings kind of one's unfurled completely and one's kind of wrapping around his body with cloven hooves holding down the other half of the ultramarine. Couldn't happen to a better legion. But the model's quite nice. Like, I'm a big fan of it.
Yeah, and I mean, it's about par for the course for the descriptions of the Gal Vorbak in the
Oh yeah.
in the black books and the models that we've seen already. Like, it's definitely a pretty seamless integration into the existing word bearers model
Oh yeah.
line.
There's definitely been some established artwork for him over the years. I know that the Horse Heresy Legends card game has been using some art for him for a little while, and it matches almost 1-to-1.
So I actually didn't like the model at first, but the more I look at it, it kind of grew on me. I think I figured out what it was. I think the painting style maybe wasn't my favorite, and the way they marketed it or whatever.
That's a
But
pretty common complaint.
and
Yeah,
I think it's
that doesn't
because
say
right
much about the
around
model though.
that's one of those things that's hard to separate. You have to try to separate your brain model from paint job when they're showing off like this,
Oh yeah.
Because they changed their painting style about 2.5 years ago, what they were doing over at Forge World. But it's actually, the model is actually growing on me. It's actually, of the most recent word bearer models, the best of the 3 that have come out recently, in my opinion. The most heresy of the 3 that have come out. The 2 Praetors kind of look like 40k Chaos Space Marines.
Which, I mean, makes sense. They are, the original Chaos Space Marine Legion.
But it's a different aesthetic. It's a thing they share with. They actually have a lot in common with the Dark Angels Praetor or models that have come out recently for Heresy. It's gone kind of the chunkier details that the 40k models use.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the fact that they were traitors.
Well,
I get what you're saying. They've definitely changed some of the modeling to have more of those finer details. So and the style is a little bit more 40k-ish.
Well, yeah, it's like it's not just finer details. Like the actual the thickness of things. Like it's not enough to have a backpack banner. It's got to have looking at it from the side. It's got to be twice as thick as it was on old models.
I think that also has to do with the method in which they are modeling, because a lot of it's no longer being hand modeled and casted. A lot of it's all being done digital, and they prototype a lot with 3D printing now, so they have different tolerances that they have to play with. So some of the thicknesses and some of the degrees of which details have to be embossed or whatever, like those are going to have to change a little bit to go along with the new designs, their new design capabilities. Overall, I think that it is producing a more quality range of miniatures, but that it does necessitate a slight style change to go along with it. But I was talking more about just the sheer amount of details, like with the Dark Angels release. Like holy shit! Like the amount of minute details and all of the like the companions and the oh gosh, the Terminators. I can't remember their names off the top of my head.
Knight Cenobium.
The Knight Cenobium. Yeah, like they have so many little like details and heraldry, and I mean that really started it in my mind. Because even like the
overload.
It's I don't know. It is overload, but at the same time, like there are so many generic options that you can choose from, because since the legions all use basically the same things anyway, that like if you want something that's a little more toned down, like you have plenty of those options already. So this is just giving you, if you want to go ham and just have like all of the minute details you want, well, these are available to you now. And I think that that's just continued with some of their with their new releases, definitely with these the two Ultramarines Praetors, and even with Argel Tal, like all of the, like I was saying, the armor just being as broken and cracked, and like all of the details on the fleshy bits that are all hanging out, like all of those, like you wouldn't see that near as much, like even compared to the Galvorback, the actual models. Like I think this has got some better minor details. Granted, like I said, I think they were probably designed differently. I think it still honors the Galvorback, the existing sculpts. but it's definitely a little bit of a departure.
See,
Yeah,
when,
it's a bit of departure, but it's definitely a win. I feel
Oh
like.
yeah,
yeah, when you
model-
said chunky, what I thought you were going to go with is the size of the model itself, because he's a big boy, as
He's a big
some of
boy.
the other releases recently have been as well.
And that doesn't help the out of the blue size change.
it's
Doesn't
not
help.
really out of the blue. I mean, come on.
Yeah, honestly, I think this is the way that, like, if they're going to start scale increasing, I think this is the way to do it. You just do it. You don't make up some kind of background nonsense to make it so. You just do it.
Just do it. I think, well, like for instance, if you're going to do a scale change, like what if you look at there's an enormous scale change for the Imperial Fist Praetors. The power armored guy is like head and shoulders above Terminator armored guys that had been out.
And I think that's also kind of an okay way, if you want to do that, is to make your HQs and your hero character units. Because I mean, let's be real, Space Marines are basically orcs, and the Urkin, their leaders are just taller than everyone else.
Yeah, it's very Invader Zim. It's just I think for people who have an established army of a certain size, and they don't want necessarily to have a very jarring, sudden change in scale, they probably should have waited for the scale change until they could release a starter box in that scale. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Which
but
might be
Give people more to play with.
there's no way to do that in a reasonable way though. Like,
Yeah, I mean, it's always going to be ugly.
well, not only that, but
It's gonna change.
even if we waited, assuming that starter box that was leaked, a few months ago is
Yeah.
legit and comes out, and like say someone starts the heresy with that box, like even if they wanted to just use the new scale models, like the models in that box look like the current cataphracti. So the size creep for the power armor is still going to be glaring. Every legion that has their specialty units, if you've gotten those models already or want to buy those models, like those scales aren't going to be updated for a very good long time. Like you're not going to be able to get Varayir Terminators or Medusan Immortals in the updated scale for I'd be surprised if they ever did it, to be perfectly honest.
I don't think they ever will.
Side, we might get Iron Havocs in the new scale.
I mean, it's certainly possible, but I think that they'll come out in a trickle. So it was with Argel Tal being larger. Like I think it looks good.
I think it works for him.
I think it works for
He's
him
a big
because
old demon.
he is. He's about the size. He's about the size of the old demon princes for fantasy.
Oh, like the old white metal ones.
Yeah, the super old ones, or the first Eldar avatars, which are just
those old
silly.
white metal ones.
But like,
Second
I totally understand like people wanting their armies to look very like congruent, but I actually think that they look better when things are a little bit different. Like not everything is the exact same height. Let there be some non-uniformity in there. It makes it look more natural in my mind. Now, I mean that there's a limit to that, obviously, but certainly the hero units or the HQs that are supposed to stand out. Like I think that that's just a natural thing. It always worked for the orcs, like the knobs and the war bosses and stuff like that. So or the Tyranids with all of their big baddies. Like I see no problem with with this. This is a good way to do it, and the fact that they did not come out with Primaris Heresy Marines is fantastic.
Agreed. So wrapping it back, Argel Tal himself being a big boy, he is his stats here are pretty indicative of that. He's weapon skill 6, which is fairly standard for Praetors, I believe. Ballistic skill 5, strength 5, toughness 5, 4 wounds, initiative 5, 5 attacks, leadership 10 with a 2+ save. So that's a pretty standard, Galvorback demon stat line. Additional wound in comparison to regular Praetors, and an additional attack, I believe, as well.
I'm actually looking that up right now. I should have had this up, but I didn't. So the Legion Praetors come with they come with base 4 attacks. However, with Argel Tal, he comes in at 185 points, and we'll go through all of the war gear and special rules. So he's when you compare him to a reasonably upgraded Praetor, like you can definitely have a reasonably upgraded Praetor for 185 points.
Oh yeah.
But go through his other rules. So he is an independent character, but he is a jump infantry. Comes standard with artificer armor, demonic claws, frag and crack grenades. Special rules. He has a special version of Master of the Legion. Basically, even though he does not have the Legionis Astartes rule, he can still give off the bonuses of Master of the Legion.
It
Which
still allows
really
for
just
rights
means
of
that
war
you
to be
can
taken.
rights of war. It
Yeah.
doesn't really count for the getting your warlord trait. Independent character demon, which confers the 5-up invulnerable save and fear. I'm still stuck in old editions where I just automatically assume that the demon rule gives you eternal warrior, but it does not. Very bulky, rage, stubborn, damned, and warlord. Where if Argel Tal is your army's warlord, he has the master of the Vakrajal warlord trait rather than rolling randomly. So special rules. The master of the Vakrajal. I actually quite like this. It's very thematic in my mind. But an army whose warlord has this trait may select Gal Vorbak Dark Brethren units as troops choices. In addition, while a warlord with this trait is part of a unit composed entirely of models with the demon special rule, the warlord in all models in the unit it has gained feel no pain. And the prospect of a maxed out Gal Vorbak squad led by Argel Tal, all with their with their demon saves and feel no pain on top of it is terrifying.
Yeah,
Which
because
means, yeah.
Vorbeck are toughness 5 with 2 wounds as is, so good luck.
What's their what do you remember what their standard save is? Is it at 3?
They have a 3-up. They've got power armor.
Yeah, so I mean, so they've got a 3-up, 5-up with feel no pain. That's a pretty choppy unit.
Feel no pain standard, by the way, is also a 5+.
Yeah. So, and then you got the damned rule, where a unit with a special rule never counts as scoring unit, regardless of the provisions of the missions being played. So, which is that's a mixed bag. Yeah, it takes away a bit of utility from the unit. However, it also means that you know exactly what you are going to use for that. You're going to do with that unit. Like, there's no changing tactics in the middle of a match. Like, do I want to move forward? Do I want to stay here and take this objective? No, you're going to go straight forward and you're going to chop something in half.
Which for what it's worth, Gal Vorbak were already damned, or like they already had that rule anyway. So if you're putting him in a unit of Gal Vorbak, that doesn't change what you're going to use them for. Only reason I can figure that they put it on him, other than just keeping him consistent with other Gal Vorbak, is because so like I talked with Eric about this a little bit, about putting him and Erebus in an army together, or putting him in Dark Brotherhood, which basically gives your infantry units access to dark channeling, which basically gives them a chance to roll on a table to gain the demon keyword. So if you roll lucky and you put Argel Tal with a 20-man unit of assault marines, and all of a sudden they become demon assault marines, they are also now getting that feel no pain. If he's your warlord, if you take Erebus, you can't do this because he has to be the warlord because Erebus sucks. But
I just really don't like having to rely on dice rolls to get my trick to go off.
No, but that just gives you an option to be able to make use of his jump infantry rule.
So, question on that note. I'm looking at, in the book, at Erebus's rules. Does he actually have the requirement of being your warlord? Because I don't see it on here. I just say, if he has, then he has this warlord trait, intimidating presence.
Well, let me double check that for you. But I believe he has something like
if Erebus
jealous.
is the army's warlord, he has the intimidating presence trait rather than rolling randomly. Yeah, I don't think that. Yeah, all of these special rules say that if Erebus is your army's warlord.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't see anything that marks him out as requiring it to be.
Yeah, so you could definitely take both and have Argel Tal as unless there's an FAQ that I'm just not familiar with. I admit to not really looking a whole lot at the word bearers.
I might have been thinking
Yeah,
of
it's always a
another
possibility.
named first captain or named special character that had like jealous command or something like that.
Corphaeron does have jealous command.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe that's what I was thinking.
Because Gal Vorbak are not cheap at all. So I can definitely see where you would want the choppiness of Argel Tal with some of his niftiness and put him in with an assault squad maxed out, like 20-man unit with with an apothecary, maybe even put something else in there too, just to really have like this hardcore Death Star choppy unit. Sometimes bodies matter more than just have the more resilient bodies that the Gal Vorbak. But but if you put him in that unit, then the whole unit ceases to be scoring.
Well, if you roll up that dark channeling and roll a 6 anyway and they become demons, they no longer count as scoring anyway, and they count as being destroyed for victory points.
Yeah, sure, but again, that's a fairly low possibility, and like that's not how you plan your army.
Yeah, I mean it's just a consistency thing because he has all. Yeah, it's a consistency thing because Gal Vorbak have it. He has all the same rules that Gal Vorbak have, except he's very bulky instead of bulky because he's jump infantry.
Sure.
So, just to interrupt, just my thought here, and so it's a neat thing to be able to bring them in the troop slot, but I feel like if you're going to run him, you're not going to run them as your main bread and butter troops. It's going to be another way to get them in, while not necessarily taking up a whatever they are, elite slot or whatever they are.
Right. Yeah. So you instead of because number one, you cannot take you can't take Serrated Sun with Argel Tal because jump infantry can't go into drop pods or any transports that don't specifically allow it, and you have to take drop pods for everyone. So if you wanted to, open that elite slot up, have one squad of Gal Vorbak as troops instead of elites, open that elite slot to something else, and take another Rite of War.
Right.
Right.
Like Emperor's Children has a similar thing. We can bring Cacophony as troops. Cacophony are really good. They're really bad troops, though.
Right, and
good model bad troop.
Specifically, it doesn't allow them as compulsory troops. They just can be taken as troops. So it just kind of gives you the option of freeing up your elite slots if you want to.
Yeah, very rarely do I see anybody ever taking a full complement of troops choices because you can have like what 6 or 8.
6, yeah.
Yeah. 6, yeah. So I mean, very rarely do I see people like maxing those out. Usually, you take between 2 and 4, and then everything else is elites. Or infantry wise or heavy support if you're like me and take heavy stuff sometimes, but jumping up to his weapons, he comes standard with demonic claws, which are strength plus 1, I'm sorry, AP3, rending, shred, two-handed. So we were discussing earlier, like it was a little bit surprising to some people that he is not just a bog standard AP2 in close combat. Like I guess a lot of people were really expecting him to come out with something more scary than those claws, which I don't know that I agree. I think that having 5 base attacks at strength 6 and AP3 with rending and shred is pretty terrifying.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I think he definitely has very high quality of wounds that he's going to inflict. I mean, number one, this guy's going to mulch any standard Marine, wounding on 2s, re-rolling those wounds, weapon skill 6, you're hitting on 3s. You're going to have a chaplain in your army, so you may as well stick him with Argel Tal and, give hatred.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be his thing, is he's not going to be the special character that you send necessarily to go hunt Sigismund. You're going to send him to go wipe out a squad of dudes in power armor.
Yeah,
Right,
no,
and then
I
you
agree.
have your strength 10 power fists from your Gal Vorback champion to, take
To
care
go
of any
fight.
AP2 needs.
Yeah,
Exactly.
well, I mean, well, not even that. I mean, if you 5 attacks base with rage and then rage if you get the charge off, you got 7 attacks. I mean, don't discount rending. Especially with shred making it,
Yeah.
giving you that extra possibility if you do not if you end up missing a wound. But I mean, at weapon skill 6, more than likely you're going to be hitting things on 3s. I think against predators, you'll be hitting at 4s, but still.
Unless
Um,
they fail their fear check.
Which
True.
fear is nothing until it's not.
Sure, and Warrior Elite is fantastic until it never is. Never mind, I'm
Right.
lying to you.
Warrior Elite
Uh,
is the best provenance to take. It should be an auto include in your army, and
I
can...
wanted to so bad, but man, Warriors, Survivors of the Dark Age, just I had to do it. Like I was just kind of stuck with it.
It is a
I'm sorry.
decade. It's
Yep.
so good.
Right, but anyway, yeah, you are gonna, whatever you're attacking, you're gonna hit, you're gonna wound it, and you're at the very least, you're gonna be making the other guy make a metric shitload of armor saves.
I think that's
That's
the most
fair.
important part. Like forcing armor saves is not a bad thing, even if what you're hitting has a 2-up armor. Like eventually
Mhm.
they're gonna roll 1s, and having that many almost guaranteed wounds is pretty impressive. And I think another big thing is you have to be smart with what you're using them for, like what you're challenging. Like maybe don't throw Argel Tal and the Galvor back directly into a Terminator assault squad. Like maybe that's not their best. Maybe that's not
That's
the
what I'm
best
saying.
idea.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the worst idea.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there are worse things you can do with them,
Well, I mean,
but
you've
it's
got a lot of the Terminator assault squads, especially like the ones that I run, have a lot of chain fist or a lot of strength 8 weapons in there. But Gal Vorback will tank those,
Yeah, they
and
don't
with
care about that strength 8, especially if
yeah.
they have Argel Tal with them and they get that 5-up feel no pain.
So yeah, so they would be an excellent tar pit unit against a lot of elite infantry assault units
And
that maybe don't have a crap load of AP2 weapons.
and also keep in mind that base Gal Vorback also have rending. So you run that squad into some Terminators with their, 2 attacks base, 3 on their sergeant with rage. It's gonna get ugly.
Yeah, and you can give the champion other weapons like a power weapon or a power fist.
Yeah, you can give a few of them in the unit extra like
I don't
power
think
weapons.
Yeah,
Basically.
it's a 1 in 5 for power weapons.
Yeah, exactly. But they don't get access to fists.
No.
Only the Dark Martyr does.
Right.
And honestly,
But
I
still, rending
put
power
it.
swords.
I also
Rending power
put
swords
a
is a big deal. Well, rending anything is pretty decent.
the way I like to. I mean, I say this as if I've run this army yet, but the build I like for the Dark Martyr is give him a power fist and a tainted weapon, because then if you choose to, if you don't really need that extra, because on the Dark Martyr the power fist is going to be strength 10 because they're base strength 5.
Can you actually do that? Because you have to exchange your chain sword for both the power fist and the tainted weapon.
No, you cannot do that. Fair enough. Fair point.
All right, so Jake can't talk for the remainder of the podcast because he doesn't know how to play the game.
No.
Got it.
No.
He's getting dabbed on.
Yep. But I honestly, I think that the tainted weapon is a decent conversation to have, because strength 5 rending instant death, like,
for sure,
not nothing.
Anything instant death is worth having a conversation about.
Yes.
At least in theory. Sometimes the theory ends up being way better than practice, but still.
Yeah, especially because if you're giving it to the guy who's already strength 5, you may as well just get So if you give him a Power Fist, he's unwieldy. If you give him the Tainted Weapon, he's Initiative 5. So rending instant death at Initiative 5 is probably better than Strength 10 unwieldy.
Which
I was
again
gonna.
depends
Yeah.
on
Really
what you're
depends on what
throwing
you're
him
going
at,
against.
right?
Right,
But
for
the
sure.
fact that he can also take Melta Bombs, I don't think that you put him in a Power Fist and send them after Dreadnoughts. Like I think that's more of a contingency. I don't think you
Right.
fire Gal Vorback at vehicles anyway.
Well, no, they don't have. Well, you can give 1 in 5 models in the unit. You can give them a special long range weapon if you wanted to, but what's the point? That's not really
Yeah.
what they excel at.
They're good for scrubbing something off an objective and then having something else claim the objective, I feel like. Or taking out those priority high value units.
Yeah, making sure the thing doesn't get to the objective in the first place.
And they're reasonably fast and tanky. And you throw Argel Tal in there with the Feel No Pain, that you add a whole other level of survivability on there. I mean, it's Feel No Pain. Every single one of us runs apothecaries pretty regularly. So I mean,
I will
Except
also
because
point
I'm
out
broke.
that Gal Vorback do bog standard have Deep Strike.
Yeah, so even having Argotal's jump infantry, you can still put him in there. You can still deep strike the whole squad if that's the thing you want to do. Not worry about drop pods and serrated sun.
well, yeah, you totally can, and it's a reasonable thing to do. Like again, because of how naturally tanky they are, and you're just adding on to that with Argel Tal, like having them sit there, relatively useless for a turn is usually a huge turnoff, but that added survivability might make it better.
Yeah, I can see that.
But I mean, if I see a squad of 10 Gal Vorback drop in behind me with Argel Tal, I'm going to do one of two things. I'm either going to devote my entire army's firepower to demolish it, or I'm going to get away from it and completely ignore it. Like, there's probably not much gray area in that.
Yeah.
So here's my question: so jump infantry, things with jump packs. If you do not use them to move in the movement phase, then you can re-roll your charge distance.
Mhm.
Is that something that confers if you have one dude with a jump pack, or does everyone have to have it?
Everyone has to have it.
Yeah, it doesn't confirm.
Otherwise, you'd see a lot more people putting a jump pack in with just regular squads.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Yeah, that's one of the things that everyone it's an all or nothing.
Yeah.
And if you have one guy who doesn't have it, then none of them can use it. Because you can either use it to move 12 inches in the movement phase, or if you don't do that, you can re-roll your charge distance.
And get Hammer of Wrath.
And get Hammer of Wrath. That's true. I always forget that.
So I mean, this begs the question: do we think we're going to see Demonic Wings, Gal Vorback at some point as an option?
That would be cool.
I think that question kind of turns into what do we expect the potential new edition of the game to bring, and I think that's a way different conversation for another time.
I mean, fair enough, yeah.
Because I think that when and if the new edition comes out, I think we're going to see a massive change to not necessarily the rules, but I think a lot of war gear is going to either be changed in functionality or be gotten rid of completely.
Mm-hmm. Go the way of the dodo.
That's my worry, is that war gear is going to go away. That's my biggest worry about a new edition.
Oh,
actually.
I don't think that war gear is going to go away, but I think that there is a lot of bloat in the current version of the game, and I think that it needs a revamping a little bit.
Right. Which again, we will. I don't want to rumor mill, and that's something that we can sink our teeth into at another point. All we do is rumor mill.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So I know we mentioned 20-man blob squads of assault marines to attach Argel Tal to. What do you guys think about them with Ashen Circle? They've got weapon skill 5 already. and they've got those strength +1. I
So
think they're AP3 now in the FAQ.
yes, the only thing that can join Ashen Circle are chaplains and Moritats.
So
Oh,
we think
yeah,
that it
that'll do
wouldn't
it.
work. Is the answer to your question?
I had considered that and then immediately remembered that they can't do that. So, but
yeah, it says it right there. You're right.
yeah, but fair enough. That would be cool, and you would think that would be a cool place. I mean, maybe if we see an FAQ, maybe they will carve Argel Tal into that, as only Argel Tal chaplains and Mortats can join Ashen Circle. That would be cool.
I don't know. I don't know that would be something they'd put in there just from like it's kind of like a what narrative purpose would that serve to let him be in that squad?
Sure.
Especially when it's pretty obvious that he's tailored specifically for Gal Vorback. I don't think that
right. Those are his guys.
Yeah.
Right. And I feel like the jump infantry thing, the fact that he has wings, isn't really meant as like a rules consideration. I think that's completely the fluff dictating how the rules were written, because
Sure.
he has the wings in the books, so that's how they're gonna make his model. How do we feel about the lack of the Guardian Spear that everybody is nerd screeching about?
I think it's fine. I do understand the idea of if you're gonna put the guy in the book that was a character in the novel, you should give him the stuff that he has in the novel. But at the same time, we see what he has with demonic claws. We have the conversation of not having AP2 things is all right sometimes. I think that's healthy for the game to a degree.
Yeah,
So
I'd agree.
as much as we talk about fluff showing what the rules should be, I think that's one that I'm kind of okay with.
I also, and this is a personal like aesthetic opinion. I don't think that the model would look as good with a spear in hand. I think that it would almost look a little off-putting.
I agree. I was gonna say that same thing, where like having a custodian spear in that guy's hand would just completely ruin the entire coherency of the aesthetic of the model.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you can't have both hands full, because that Ultramarine needs to be there, and you can't have both hands full.
Only good Ultramarine is a dead Ultramarine.
I mean, I wasn't going to say that, but I do feel that.
Isn't that right, Gray?
So now, having still not painted any of the Ultramarines that I had started an army on, I can agree with that.
I mean, at least you're doing good Ultramarines, though. You're doing like a destroyer company, if I remember correctly. So
I've got an Ultramarine army. I say I have an Ultramarines army, and like I'm stripping them, so they're not even really an Ultramarines army. I like to say that I've got one.
As is only right.
Well, yeah. I'm not like I'm stripping them with the full intention of repainting them as Ultramarines. I'm stripping them because the paint job from when I got them is just balls.
Well,
just absolute balls. Looks like someone just threw them at a Sherwin-Williams store and prayed for the best.
Oh, man.
Are they painted already as Ultramarines?
Yeah, the guy I bought them from I'm not sure if he painted them or he got them painted, but like they were already done.
God, I would hope he didn't get them painted from what you're describing. Like, you paid for this?
I mean, I paid for it technically, but
well, okay. I mean,
but I also knew that I was just going to strip them. I'm sorry, like I got like 30 guys with jump packs, like a couple units of breachers, a couple of suzerains, Gilliman and an Imperial Knight, and 3 Contemptors for like $80. Like I can strip the damn models.
Right. That's definitely
really can't complain about that, to be honest.
Positive cost benefit analysis on that one for sure.
If there's anything that I'm good at in this game, it's that. It's finding those deals.
Oh yeah,
fair enough.
I'm with you, man.
But yeah, overall, I think that if I like that they didn't give him a ranged attack. Like I thought I think that if they had given him the spear, I think there would be a segment of the community to be like, yeah, that's how it was in the book. That makes sense. But I think that more people would have looked at the model and been like, something just doesn't jive.
Like what the hell is he doing with a
And
custodian
I
spear?
think it would have been too much of a break
like
from like the chaos aesthetic of him. Yeah, like,
yeah,
oh,
it
and here's
it
your
wouldn't fit.
shiny, clean Auramite spear.
And
Right.
like what? So either they keep it at what the regular Guardian Spear stat line is, which is still AP3 with some like bolter shots in there, which is really the only thing that he gains model wise is a ranged
With an
attack.
18-inch bolter gun, yeah.
So I mean, like really, or they have to change what the abilities of the spear are, and that would just kind of make it weird too. So.
Right. And I feel like also there's something to be said for, I think, because these are both Aaron Dembski Bowden books, is Betrayer and I'm about to talk about Master of Mankind. I think between those two books being written, I feel like there was some kind of retcon where like Guardian weaponry was like gene locked to the custodian that it
Well, no,
belonged
they
to.
actually mentioned that in First Heretic that he had to bypass that somehow, or maybe it was in Betrayer. They do mention that he had to go through some process of unlocking that
I see.
spear.
Okay. Well,
Oh,
I was trying to give them the out, and I guess they took it away from themselves. So there you go.
I just think it's
Congratulations, you played yourself.
Strike
some
2 on
things
Jake not
don't
knowing what the fuck
necessarily
he's
need
talking
to be,
about.
represented on the table necessarily.
Yeah.
It's one of those things. Rules and fluff.
Well,
Fluff dictates rules, except for when it doesn't.
well, fluff should have an influence on rules, but definitely shouldn't fucking dictate it. Otherwise, we're all playing games with 3 Marines and 1,000 Solar Aux.
I mean, I could do that. That's fine with me.
I mean,
I'm your dark compliant.
I can now, but I think that they did a. While there's some people that are probably screeching that they wanted more, I think that they did really well with making a reasonable character at a reasonable cost and gave him some pretty decent thematic abilities. Like, is he the
you hit it on the head
choppiest?
there. He's reasonable.
Yeah, is he the choppiest Praetor that you can create? No, but the same people that want this guy to be a whole lot better than he is are the same ones that are going to be bitching and moaning that like, oh, the power creep is destroying the game.
Right.
Right.
I was just gonna say, like, I think it's nice to see consideration for the overall health of the game such that it is when they release rules for something like this. And we can, I mean, we don't need to talk about them, but also, the recent rules for the Imperial Fist Huskarls, like, they're not, out of this world busted either, which I'm sure every Imperial Fist player wishes they were, but I think it's overall better for the game that they weren't like auto include center of every Imperial Fist army build units.
Yeah, because those guys are literally basic Terminators with that one special rule.
Right.
And like, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, being able to step back and see that, like, okay, I don't need to min max. I just want reasonable options.
Exactly.
Like, I think that's where the golden state of the game is when you have a lot of options and you don't feel like you have to go this direction or you're penalized for going this direction. Like, I think that's where you really get the best benefit out of the game. Like, back when book 9 Crusade came out and the Dark Angels were released, they released the Cataphracti and the Power Armor Praetor to coincide with the release, and then they came out and released some named rules for them as well. And like, I thought, okay, that's a really cool precedent. They should do that more often. But then you read the rules, and they're like, okay, they're, based. If you compare them to just standard Praetor, they you get like one extra set of like war gear or a slight special rule. It's not crazy by any means. It's not like, wow, that's better than all the other named characters, but it's like, could take that. That's pretty reasonable. That's what they've done in this case, and I hope that they continue doing it like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, even going back to like Malevolence, with the Blood Angels release, you have Raldoron, who again, lore guiding, rules writing. He should be the baddest ass that ever asked, but I mean, he's basically just a Praetor plus. He's just a Praetor with a Paragon blade that has shred on it, and he can pick his Warlord trait. And that's pretty much it. I think he also has Furious Charge, but whatever.
I mean, all of those are those can be really powerful bonuses.
Right, but they're not like oh, well, he got Eternal Warrior and he's got 10 attacks and yada yada yada, like,
and making you reroll saves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're all kind of getting around the same
Instant
point
death
here.
in a duel.
Is that too often the game gets into this spot with releases where, in order to sell the release, they play the one-upmanship game. And it's really nice to see some releases that aren't playing that game.
They do that, and a lot of players reward them for doing that. So it's really our fault.
Yeah, it is.
We allow that shit to happen.
How many people went out and bought a Dark Angels army the second the Dark Angels book came out? You know what I mean?
Well, part of that was for rules. I would say that they are needlessly complicated, but more importantly, their models were just beautiful. Like their whole army came out, and it just looks fantastic. I've got most of that range now, and like building them, and the prospect of painting it is just daunting as hell.
Well,
Like, and
you know me.
I do, but I'm one of those people who's like, as slow a painter as I am, like I have the need for everything to be done myself, and then my dumbass decided to start doing like hand done checkers on the heraldry. I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with me?
So one last point I want to make as far as having good options that aren't too overpowered. The Praetor that I generally run for my World Eaters is 170 points. Argel Tal is 15 points more. And for that, he gets, one additional strength and toughness base, one more wound. They have the same initiative and attacks because of the digital lasers. And my guy will have a better invuln save and arguably a better weapon in the Paragon blade. So I think it's something that balances out fairly decently. Yeah, he doesn't have stubborn. My guy does have rage because he's World Eaters. But I think that is something that ends up coming out kind of like, okay, yeah, I don't feel like I'm forced to take Argel Tal as a Word Bearers player.
Right, and you're also taking him as being a force multiplier, which if you don't want to run Gal Vorback, you don't need to use Argel Tal, and vice versa. You can just run your Beatstick World Eater or Word Bearers Praetor, and it job's good, and he's as good as any other Legion Praetor.
Well, I think depending on what your army comp is, like he doesn't have to be the only HQ on the table. Like you have your.
In fact, he can't be.
Well, yes. In fact, he cannot be. But there you go.
So you've got other characters out there. So you could have your Beatstick Praetor and your chaplain, and then Argel Tal leading a unit of assault marines. So you've got this fast threat that can kind of be where it needs to be on the table, and Argel Tal is super choppy.
Or like Eric said, you could put him in that unit with the chaplain and the assault marines, and then oh boy, you get lucky on that dark channeling roll, and all of a sudden you've got yourself a Death Star for less than 700 points.
Oh, Death Stars, yeah.
Yeah, pretty gnarly. But yeah, so I mean, I think overall, like I think it's a good release. I don't agree with the people that are kind of crapping on it because they think that he should be more powerful than he is. I think when you take into
He's
account
right where he needs to
his,
be.
I think, yeah, exactly. I think if you take his points cost into consideration, his ability to multiply a Dark Brethren unit or Gal Vorbak unit, I think that makes a pretty big deal. It's a pretty big deal for a reasonable points cost. And if you want to play super thematic and just have a full Gal Vorbak army, he gives you that ability to as well. Because you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that there is another way to make Gal Vorbak troops choices.
Last of the Serrated Sun, Rite of
Oh,
War.
it does do it. Okay.
So is there?
Another thing I just thought of too, we talk about putting a chaplain into that unit and hoping for good dark channeling. If you roll dark channeling on a 1-3, that unit gets zealot, which is the only thing you're really taking a chaplain for. So you stick that man in an assault squad blob, you basically can't lose no matter what you roll.
Yes, sir.
You're probably gonna get that hatred, or you're gonna get that feel no pain, or on a 4 or 5 you give him +1 strength, which still isn't bad.
No.
+1 strength is +1 strength.
Yep.
Can't hate
Makes
that.
everything easier. So yeah, I'm a fan of it, and the fact that he's got a really good looking model to go along with it, just kind of seals the deal. Like he's a solid choice in a number of different army comps. You can run. I can see ways that you can run him, pseudo competitively if that's your deal. But there's a lot of thematic uses for this model, and I'm a fan.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Now you
Agreed.
might be able to see some Shattered Legions or allied armies with Argel Tal
Yeah.
and his best bro Karn running around the table together.
I think that'd be a really cool army. So so Eric, if you want to go ahead and just do that, we'd
We're gonna
appreciate
have
it.
to-
Thanks,
yeah.
buddy.
Yeah, that'll be
partner.
next in line after the Orcs and the Night Lords.
Oh yeah, and the and your bikers.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Oh,
Biker
are they Night
gang.
Lords?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Swift Blade.
Nice. Okay, cool. Well, yeah. So,
Yeah.
So
anyone
yeah,
else got anything that they want to tell you about Argel Tal?
I think the Cliff Note version of this entire conversation is
Like 'em.
Horus Heresy gamers are poop, and Argel Tal is cool. I think
I
that's
think that can kind of be a little asterisk on most conversations. Like, hey guys, don't be douchebags. Just enjoy playing with your little army men.
Although
Yes.
I will say, front to back, being in both Horus Heresy and 40k communities, your Heresy community is much more likely to play because they build an army because, hey, this is a neat idea, this is a fun thing, and your 40k players are usually the ones that are doing the bitching of, oh man, how can you do a release and it's not so game breaking that everything else in the game has to be elevated to keep up with it.
I actually had a really big conversation with some of the other locals about that the other night, but that'll probably be a good
That's a
topic
good
for
topic for
another
another day.
conversation. Yeah, because I could really get in on that one.
So yeah. With that being said, do we want to move on to our other kind of topic
Power
that we had
weapons.
lined up?
Yeah, I think so.
Power weapons.
Yes,
Talk about
specifically.
why malls are the best things since sliced bread.
Yeah, this is now going to turn into the Power Mall Stan
Mall
episode.
Power Mall fan page. Power Mall 2024.
So I mean, it's a conversation as old as time. You pay 10 points for a power weapon on somebody. What power weapon do you take? And I think it's no secret that the most popular options are usually a power axe or a power sword. I think that those are, and there's nothing wrong with those choices, and I don't think that there's anything, bad to say about either of them. However, we've just been kind of talking recently about, well, maybe that's not as much of an auto-take decision as we might have thought. So we want to...
Yeah, so there's
tell
some...
you why I don't like power axes, even though I take them, but no, that's not the conversation.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I just think that making them unwieldy is dumb. Like, I think that they should be a minus initiative, not unwieldy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's no reason why a power axe should go at the same speed as a thunder hammer or a fist.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
No, it's +1 strength. It's not like double strength. So, but
Now,
But-
if you were going to look at a special power axe, like a +2 strength one, that's like a Legion specific one, some kind of headhunter or headsman's axe that's two-handed, that I could see being unwieldy.
yeah,
know what I
yeah,
mean?
or if it had something else to go along with it, some other special rules, but or like if it had rending or something like that, sure, make it unwieldy then. But hell, no, not rending. No, something because right now I think that they're a cheap.
So, what I was saying is, I think also the power weapon discussion comes down to what Legion, how your Legion rules interact.
Absolutely.
Exactly,
So,
and that will. Yeah, go on.
I remember as children, the only thing we have for us is initiative bonus. That's the only way we win is by going first.
Yeah.
So we're the Ricky Bobby of Legions. If you ain't first, you're last. And
It's true.
I'm
so
never
for
going to be
me-
able to play you without thinking that every model is played by Will Ferrell now.
Well, hell, Gray, I was high when I said that.
also fits for children.
Thank you, 8 pounds 6 ounce baby corn.
Exactly.
That's my
Hey,
favorite.
Program, I thought you said we were going to fight in the Siege of Terra. Well, hell, I was high when I said that. Now let's go abduct some locals.
Save me, Tom Cruise! Save me with your biomancy magic!
So yeah,
Just
so
adding
let's.
to the trucker aesthetic here.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, so more
So-
to your point as well about interacting with Legion rules. I know Jake has a lot of thoughts about power mauls, but I've got some thoughts about power lances for an army that I don't play. So Jake is of
Really
course
familiar with
the
them, to be
Blood
honest.
Angels player, and I think there is a very strong case to be made for power lances in a Blood Angels army, and here's why. So their Legion special rule basically comes down to in close combat they require 1 fewer to wound than normal. So if you normally you need a 4+, now you need a 3+. So
Right.
what the power lance has over basically anything else is number one, the fact that you can take them on basic dudes, 1 in 5 in an assault squad, 1 in 3 in an outrider squad. And you're not forcing it onto your character who you might want to do challenges with or power fist or anything of that nature.
Blade of
So you
Salty
just have
Tears.
basic guys. So what, Jake?
Or a blade of Salty Tears, aka the Blade of Perdition, which is
Yeah, exactly. Or the Blade of Perdition, which is disgusting and I'm not going to talk about. So what you do with your power lance is you have it on maybe 2 guys in your assault squad, maybe all 4 that you can take. And what happens is, so the power lance, for those who don't know, probably a lot of people because nobody uses them. They are strength +1/user, AP3/4. Now they use the first profile, the +1 strength AP3 on the turn that you charge, and strength user AP4 every other time. So what that means for Blood Angels is that your basic guys are going to be strength 5. Ordinarily, you'd be wounding basic Marines on a 3, but because you're Blood Angels, now you'll be doing it on 2s. And you'll have AP3 for that turn you charge. If you're taking something like Day of Revelations, you'll have Initiative 5 on top of that. And you're just going to be deleting every basic Marine you come into contact with. And presumably the worst profile might not gonna matter later on because you're gonna kill the fuck out of that squad.
it is
Which
very
are they
much an all
single-handed
or
or
nothing.
one-handed?
They are
It is
one-handed.
very much an all or nothing, and yeah, they are one-handed. There
So
are
actually-
some situations where I think they are always a better choice than power swords, specifically against Thalax and Vorax. Being that on the turn you charge, you're going to have an additional strength to hit their toughness 5 better. And Thalax are only a 4+. I don't know that they can buy a 3+, but they're a 4+ anyway. So the AP4 doesn't matter. Now, against something like Castellax, where toughness 7, strength 4, and 5 wound the same, that bonus isn't going to matter. So your power sword is always going to be better. But there are niche cases where that power lance is going to help.
Actually, now that I look at it, I kind of like the power lance a lot more than I thought I did.
Not an uncommon
Yeah.
theme that we hear amongst people that we talk about this with.
Yeah, more now that I look at it more, because I mean, I have the Phoenix Spear, which is So it's like a Phoenix Spear, but cheaper. Really, it's the cheap version of a Phoenix Spear, and it's actually in some ways better. The being one-handed is big. I think that makes
Yeah,
it a
that's a
good
big,
weapon.
and that was something I had to look
Garbage.
at. That was something I had to look
I
at
thought
earlier.
I always thought it was two-handed. So I'm like, oh, this is garbage. It's just a two-handed chainsword after you charge. I'm like, but no, one-handed. It's actually it just becomes a chainsword basically on every subsequent turn.
No, but it's AP4, so against
Yeah, it's an
certain
AP4
armies,
chainsword.
against militia
So it's a
and
chainsword
stuff.
to kind of clean
Yeah,
up
still
militia and
still
some
not
other
nothing. It's still AP4, which is not
Yeah.
necessarily bad. It's, I mean,
I
sure, it's
pretty
not
much
gonna...
live and die by AP4 on my dudes.
on the orc
Nature.
bikers for sure. Yeah.
Well, no, on the World Eaters Tactical Marines with their chain axes.
Oh, true that. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and
So I think
your orcs run like cowards against their own chain axe.
You're goddamn right they do.
If only
I
you
think-
could
I
put
think they're
Warrior
not-
Elite on the orcs. That'd be
If only.
I think they're good. I think there's something fluffy and different to do when you don't want to just power sword or power axe spam.
Which,
They have their uses.
not for nothing, it is also a pretty aesthetic choice for Blood Angels too. I mean,
Oh yeah, it would look pretty sweet.
got
The-
dudes with
There
spears.
isn't any biker.
and there you go. Right
Well,
there is
good.
the biggest problem with power lances is modeling the damn things.
Very true. Well, you
There's
always
only-
Is
always-
there not a Power Lance model in like a special weapon thing?
There
Nope,
are very
doesn't exist.
few individual models that you can get them from, or get the piece from. But also, just spears in general are hard as fuck to to carry around.
Oh yeah, those things are gonna snap.
Yeah, so like
Yeah.
I don't really have a problem on my end because I can just I've got my own little personal forge world, so I can just make them.
the
much
Martian
as-
forges,
well,
yes.
Yes.
Yeah, or if you
Um,
get something like those Magna-Rex that are magnetic and you don't
Yeah,
have to
so-
worry
those
about
aren't
laying them
bad.
down.
So I'm gonna
But those
I'm
are
gonna
really expensive.
I'm gonna put my 2 cents in right here for a second. I'm gonna get up on my bitch box for just a moment. Magnet cases are the only way to carry your army. If you put your army in foam, you are begging for disaster. You are begging for things to snap, to break, to melt, to bend. You're basically putting your nicely painted model that you just spent however long on. Basically, you're putting it in a brick of sandpaper and then asking, well, how long is this paint job gonna last?
You're
'Cause-
making a hell of assumption that I nicely paint anything.
Yeah, no, I think you're right
Bold
though. I
assumption.
got the magnet case like 2 days ago, and number one, I think I can fit more stuff in it than I can in a foam case, just by virtue of being able to squeeze things together really well. And also, yeah, tall, spindly bits. You don't have to worry about like pluck foam. The big thing on a on a Nuncio Vox isn't going to matter that it sticks up some.
Your Vexilla backpack flag or whatever you've got on there.
Your
Your
chain
standard
axes
pairs.
that are made of, one molecule thick resin.
So quick side tangent and now / end rant, but listen to me now, thank me later.
Listen to me now and thank me later.
Exactly, dude.
So I actually have, I have a couple of ways of making lances. I think potentially disgusting. Luckily for a legion that I do play,
There you
I
go.
think that I think Space Wolves are actually uniquely suited to use power lances in realistically the way that they should be available to everyone. But it falls down to Legion rules. So one of the main rules for the Space Marine or the Space Wolves Legion traits is what's the name of it? I can't remember it. They have a rule called Bestial Savagery, where models with a special rule gain a weapon skill bonus on any turn in which they have successfully charged. They also have counterattack, but counterattack by itself doesn't really get much of a benefit with from the lances, other than the fact that they get the extra attack, which is somewhat helpful, but would help the other power weapons better. However, both of their rights of war would make lances a little bit better. So one of their rights of war is called the Pale Hunters, and I won't go over all of it, just the relevant parts with the lances. Actually, before I go over that, Space Wolves get a special infantry unit that they must take as their compulsory troops choice, called the Grey Slayer squads. Now, because of the way that I like to play my Grey Slayer squads, I would never take a Legion tactical squad. I will always take Grey Slayer squads. Their big deal is that they are, I think, the most customizable standard infantry unit in the game. Like, you can just kit them out in lots of different ways, and every individual model can have something different on it.
Yeah, you're essentially running them. They're essentially veteran squads, basically, and the like flexibility you have in kitting them out.
Yeah, and 5-point power weapons for everyone is not bad.
No, you can have you can give them you can swap out their close combat weapon for a power weapon for 5 points, which is pretty fantastic. It's just it gets really expensive real fast whenever you're trying to kit out entire units with it. So when you have those units as kind of your bog standard, troops choices, I can put as many spears as I want into a unit. So that's where the rights of war come in. So the first right of war is the Pale Hunters, where they have an effect called the Bleed and Harry, where all infantry units, except for Terminator units, gain hit and run, except that they roll 2d6 instead of 3d6 for how far they moved, which actually, for what we're talking about, is not a bad thing. So
that's a really good thing.
In the event that you get charged, well, first off, you get counterattack, so at least you have a number of attacks, that you can use, even if it's not the best with the lances. You'll get the extra attack as though you charged. But then at the end of that assault phase that you were charged, you do your initiative test, and hopefully you can get away 2d6, which puts you in a really good position to fire your bolt pistols and charge again in the subsequent charge phase. You also get an ability called Fury of the Pack, where if a Space Wolves unit in the detachment using the right of war successfully charges into assault against an enemy unit which is already locked in combat, the assaulting unit gets +1 additional charging attack per model. So if you're running multiple squads of lance carrying Grey Slayer units and you're able to get a combo charges off onto units, or even if you get locked into something, because I'll probably have Terminators, because I always have Terminators, throw them into something, make it last a couple of turns. I just throw other packs in there, and they get extra attacks with I'll get a bonus to my weapon skill, because that's a standard Space Wolf ability, and now they will have extra attacks. They'll have an attack for a one-handed weapon and a bolt pistol, one for the charge, and then one more for the Fury of the Pack special rules. So you're just drowning whatever you're attacking with, strength +1 AP3 attacks, which is, pretty fantastic. So that's one way that I think that they could be really good. My other right of war, called the Bloodied Claws, is a little bit simpler in terms of what it will do. So one of the abilities is the Oath of the Bloodied Claw, where all Grey Slayer and Assault squads gain Furious Charge. So now instead of +1, you'll have a Strength 6 Power Lance on the charge at weapon skill +1.
So basically, you're now Blood Angels with extra steps.
Yeah, as if we needed another reason to think Space Wolves are absolutely disgusting.
Well, now that only works on the charge, obviously, because it's Furious Charge. Where the Blood Angel special rule, that
they just have
that they just have that. So theirs would be better. However, I get the Power Lances. I can have them in far better quantity than what you can have in a
yes, and also for much cheaper as well. Yes.
Yeah, and for cheaper. The only they do have another rule in that right of war called the Howl of the Death Wolf, which is it's a one-time use ability that you have to call at the beginning of your the beginning of your turn, basically, where you get to re-roll your charges for that assault phase. So you have a little bit more reliability in hitting that clutch charge when you needed to make the lance bonus better. Out of those two, the bloodied claws is a more simplistic use of it, and having that strength 6 against certain armies would be really beneficial. I'm looking at you, Mechanicum. But I think that the doing it in the Pale Hunters, where you get the hit and run, it's a little bit more versatile. And if you're able to get multiple units, stuck into close combat, like it could get real dirty real quick.
Yeah, I think utility builds are sometimes things that are overlooked for the sake of the brute force and ignorance builds. So I think there's definitely something to be said for hit and run with power lances for sure.
I will say, like, from an aesthetic point of view, I think that they would look fantastic on Space Wolf models. Like, I think there are a lot of really cool spear unit or spear options that you can put on them that just it would look just thematically right with that army.
Right. To kind of loop back just very quickly to kind of sourcing power lances. I'm not sure what kits you would need to get some power lances in
Stormcast Eternals.
Yes, and I was going to say in the Heresy range specifically, but yes, you have the whole Age of Sigmar range is just abounds with power lance options. Also, you have your third party bits manufacturers. The one I think is a terribly kept secret at this point that I think everybody knows about, but obviously you have your Conversion World, which they sell very high quality stuff. I've bought a few sets of their power weapons, and they're just fantastic. I will point out that I think actually today or yesterday they updated their store with about 20 new items that had kind of just been sitting there during a lull in their opportunity to work on the website. So definitely go and check that out. They are not a sponsor. We don't have any sponsors because we are poor and
we are free men.
We will not bow to corporate greed.
I'm actually looking at their spear options now. They've got 8 different spear options. They did, however, kind of mess up with their. They've got, it says 9, but one of them is a Emperor's Spears shoulder pads. So it's not really a spear weapon, but so that's on them. But they're reasonably priced and they look pretty good. The only thing I don't think I like, and I'm gonna double check. I'm gonna click into it before I say this out loud. Yeah, the only thing I don't like is that the hands aren't modeled on there.
Right, which their hands, they sell them separately as a pack, and they come with like the hand kind of like splayed open, and what you do is you glue the weapon into the hand and then just run a hairdryer or a heat gun over it and kind of just bend the fingers around the weapon, and then Bob's your uncle.
Yeah, so I mean that would be the way to do that. There's also if you're into the 3D printing stuff, there's a bunch of options there. There's a bunch of fantasy bits that would work real well. I immediately think of Stormcast Eternals. They have some really, I think, good looking spears that I think would work.
Especially if you're looking at your Blood Angels or your White Scars or I think even maybe your salamanders a bit.
Yeah.
So to weigh in, there's a couple of sources already within the Heresy line for the spear lance kind of aesthetic. I think we're missing. You have, especially if they're bike mounted or vehicle, if you're putting them on bikers, jet bikers, or whatever, you can use the spears from the Forge World Custodian bikers. Those are actually like lances, like with the flared back and everything.
Man, that is a pricey way to source spears.
That is a pricey spear.
So you could use those. Golden Casket comes with those spears. Fair. And then if you want something more infantry size that's relatively cheap, you could go with, they still sell unless they've discontinued them now, Phoenix spears.
So
The Phoenix
you,
Spears, they do have kind of an eagle-headed thing to them, but they're not so Emperor's Children that you couldn't use them elsewhere
yeah.
with
So yeah,
minor
exactly.
modifications.
You can get the Emperor's Children's Phoenix Spears. I don't think I'm checking to see
They have
aside.
hands.
Well, but that wing is like you would need to trim that off really because I mean it's very obviously Emperor's Children,
Yeah.
but that would be a fairly easy
Yeah.
thing to do.
If you're
I
a
actually
Forge
think
World purist, the options exist for you to make it work.
there's
Well,
just not
here's the
many.
thing about the Phoenix Spears, though, if we're going to use those, because I'm looking at them, and they have the hands molded on already, and
They're
3 out of
two-handed.
the 5, yeah, they're two-handed. 3 out of the 5 that come in that pack.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah. So
that's one of those things where it comes down to how do you model your guy.
and I think that's been a contributing factor as to why you don't see many people use them. They're not. It's not that necessarily that they're as unpopular as they would seem to be. It's just like, well, why the hell would you go out of your way to try to model them? Like,
Yeah, it's something
Right.
you really got to want in
yeah,
order
you
to
have to
have.
you have to try to find reasonable bits for those conversions because most units, like I'm going back to my assault squads that I got, like they don't have any lances in there.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
do
they
also
got
think
swords.
though that I think that power lances are like by far the least popular option, and I've had I was one of them very up until recently when we started kind of brainstorming about it a little bit. That was like, why would I even consider that as an option? But
realistically, you wouldn't unless your Rite of War or your Legion special traits really gave you a reason to.
Right, and that's why I talked about Blood Angels instead of World Eaters.
Yeah, like
Right.
if they came out and they decided that power axes and power swords and lances and mauls each had a different points value, the conversation may
That would
change.
change the
Like
conversation.
if yeah, power lances may end up being a 5-point upgrade where swords and axes are 10, and like that would make a big difference because like I'm much more willing to spend 25 points on a few of those in a squad that could potentially get some close combat usage, but will not necessarily always will. But
Yeah.
But right now, like I would rather have the consistency of axes and swords in the unit.
Sure, and I mean, I think it's definitely fair to say that there's some legions and rites of war that make better use of them than others, but I also don't think that that's the end of the conversation either, because I think it kind of
because we haven't even addressed malls either.
true. So I mean,
I
kind of
actually use mauls. I use mauls
I use them
somewhat regularly.
well.
And it kind of goes back to the conversation we were having with Argel Tal, and is that you're not doing it to bypass armor. You're taking mauls to give very consistent wounds, make force dice rolls, and to help deal with some of the higher toughness value units out there. Because
I think they're really good against multi-wound armies too.
Oh yeah, because of the concussive. A lot of people sleep on concussive.
Yeah, they do.
So against Custodes or Mechanicum, you're knocking them out with concussive. That's fantastic.
Hey Eric, tell everyone what concussive does to your Primarch.
Bad things. It does very bad things.
Yep.
Concussive is a good special rule. It's just its usage is fairly limited.
And I'll be honest, I didn't even know that power mauls had concussive until recently.
It doesn't come into play very often. I mean, the chaplain comes standard with one, in the Crozius, and oh gosh, what is the Terminator squad? The Nullificators come standard with power mauls.
Oh yeah, and there's a Deflagrate.
The Fallen Terrace has some straight up power mauls.
Yeah,
that's what they come standard with.
So I mean, oh yeah.
Yeah.
So it's another one that's like I like having a couple of them just kind of sprinkled around. The usefulness of cutting through armor is usually more beneficial with how Space Wolves play.
Right.
But having that extra plus 2 strength in there on a couple of models, just so that there are some some guaranteed wounds that you have to, or nearly guaranteed wounds that they're gonna definitely have to roll for. Like they're not gonna fail an armor save unless you force them to take it.
Honestly,
I think that, speaking of strength, I think that brings up another thing. Is I think power malls shine even brighter on units that are already strength 5.
Oh,
They should get even better.
well,
I
strength
don't know that I agree with that because strength 7
doesn't
against
really do much.
Marines, yeah, it'll do more against things that are toughness 5,
Or toughness
but
6, yeah.
or toughness 6, which those are toughness 5 is pretty common in custodies, any kind of biker unit. But anything
Yeah.
more than that is kind of a rarity to see.
You see it a lot in Mechanicum.
Yeah, and that's about it.
I was thinking off the top of my head, Mechanicum. That's huge.
Mauls do pretty good work against Mechanicum when they start failing their wounds, because nearly everything there is multi-wound. So being able to drop some of their capabilities on certain units is pretty fantastic.
Yeah, and you look again at things like Thalax and Vorax that are only a 4-up save anyway. Your Assault Marine is going from wounding them on a 5 to wounding them on a 3 and bypassing armor save.
Yeah,
And then concussing them on top of that.
like I'm thinking like on my Greyslayer squads, like my options are just the standard power weapon. So if I'm not taking lances, or I put axes in there because the AP2 is really important, but I usually only put like maybe 2 in a squad. Like again, they start getting pricey if you start putting more in there. But depending on what you're fighting, like I have no. If I'm going up against Terminators, like what's better, having the AP2 going simultaneously with them at Initiative 1, or having a bunch of Mauls,
forcing a
pretty
bunch of armor
regularly,
saves.
forcing armor saves at Initiative, 4, because I stand to get a lot of benefit out of killing off a Terminator or 2 before they have a chance to swing back with their fists.
So I'll tell you guys how I use power mauls, and it's a little different than the actual power maul, but it's the Meteor Hammer, which the Meteor Hammer is one of these special weapons that World Eaters get on characters. They can take them for plus 15 points, and then Rampagers can take them for 10. And the Meteor Hammer is basically a power maul. It's strength plus 2. It's AP 5, which sometimes matters, but not really. And it's also concussive, but it's also plus 1 initiative. I put that on my Rampager sergeants. I put that on at least one of my assault sergeants. And that, Jay can tell you, having a guy swinging at you at the same initiative as your HQ is not something that you want to be taking lightly.
Especially because
no,
with the
definitely.
World Eaters rules, that is essentially a guaranteed wound because they get to re-roll the wounds of 1. So they're wounding
Exactly,
on 2s,
yeah.
re-rolling 1s.
Now, the only thing is they are specialists' weapons, so you're not going to get the full benefit that you would out of the power maul, being able to use a bolt pistol for an extra attack. But I think the plus 1 initiative is worth that trade off.
For sure.
Yeah, that's pretty good. But as far as another point I just thought of with the putting them on strength 5, putting power mauls on somebody at strength 5, like Black Shields, for instance, they pay a premium for things like Power Fist, but a strength 7 power maul is pretty good. And against light tanks, that's actually going to be worthwhile. You know what I mean?
That is true. The hitting strength 7 is useful for aiding in beating up armor values, and it at least makes you a more reasonable threat if you get stuck into combat with a contemptor. I'm sorry, it actually makes you a potential threat to a contemptor, whereas normally
Right.
you would not be with strength 6 or below. So it's just to Eric's point, the strength 7 doesn't affect
Doesn't help
anyone's
against infantry.
instant death threshold. So it's not seen as as useful a strength to get to as 6 or 8, because both of those will break an instant death threshold.
And
Yeah, I
also
get-
cross over common wound chart like tick overs as well.
Yeah, that was more my point than instant death is the hitting the 2+ to wound rather than the 3.
Yeah, true, but I mean both are valid points.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think that right now with the current stage of the game, and all of this could change if we get a new edition. Mauls, I think, have a very serious place in a lot of units, just baseline. I think that just people overlook what they can bring in lieu of just armor AP value.
Mhm.
Lances are just like, there are ways to make them kind of threatening. And I think that we've kind of gone over a few of those, but I think just generally speaking, they don't bring enough to the table to outclass any of the other options. Even if they were plentiful, bits wise, and they're not. So they're not as good to take, and you have to go out of your way to find a way to model your unit with it. So it's just, there's nothing that really shines in their favor.
Sure,
Yeah,
I think they definitely are an all or nothing type weapon that kind of they do definitely have much more of a niche build, but then it also kind of speaks to what are you trying to do with your power weapon. And I think the reason that AP2 weapons are so popular is the dueling of opposing artificer armor sergeants. And so people take power axes because they're like, well, I want to be able to carve through the artificer armor on the other guy that he's going to have, because everybody has them, because why would you not put artificer armor on your sergeant? That we can either get into that now, or that can be another topic for another day, where I don't think artificer armors on sergeants are as auto include as you might think, but
well, it's not auto include, but I don't think that that's why people take them. I think that there are an abundance of ape or armor 2 units in the game, and you know AP2 will do everything an AP3 weapon does. So if you can get it for about the same price, then you always go for the AP2. But there are a lot of artificer armored units. Okay,
I disagree. So
you're allowed to be wrong.
For instance, you played against my Emperor's Children the other week, and had a bunch of power fits in where those are AP2.
Yes.
And I completely nullified my advantages, my Legion advantages, which is going first, in exchange for better armor, better AP. And you saw they didn't live to deliver that AP2.
Yeah, I mean that is
AP2 is good if you live.
Well,
live to
that's
deliver
always
it.
going to be the case. I mean, but there are other weapons that are AP2 than unwieldy ones, like a Paragon blades.
That's true.
I mean,
yeah, that's its own conversation. Paragon blades are amazing.
But you AP2 will take care of not only your artificer sergeants, but your entire armor 2 units, like pyroclasts and Deathsworn and anything Terminator armored. So I mean, there's plenty of those units that you have to have some sort of answer for. So
yeah,
that's I will tell you that just from my list building perspective, like I never really think about challenges as a reason why I would take a potential weapon. I'm always thinking about the unit in total. Like, and it's usually like, am I fighting an armor 3 unit or an armor 2 unit? Like, how am I going to deal with a Terminator unit with my Gray Slayers? Having a couple of axes and a couple of fists in there at least make them a threat, and then everything else is just number of potential wounds that I can put on you and force an armor save.
Right. And I think that's kind of goes back to depends on what Legion you are, because, for instance, you play Emperor's Children, you don't have Grey Slayers, you have tactical squads.
Well, there's a
And
real
there's
easy
never
way
gonna
to
be a
fix that.
Terminator.
You know, play a reasonable legion.
You know, you're never going to beat the Terminators with a tactical squad. They're going to beat them to death.
Well,
I don't
you're
know
right.
that I agree with that.
well,
I mean,
you're thinking
again,
about it.
it comes down to Legion choices and all that. But
Legion, yeah.
I don't know.
But
I
if you
think I think
could-
if an Emperor's Children tactical squad with extra combat weapons gets charge off and punks a unit of Terminators, I think it could happen. I don't think
Oh, yeah,
it's
oh,
I don't think it's a foregone conclusion.
It does happen. I mean, it definitely happens. I mean, but hell, even against most Terminator units, there may be a weapon or two in there that's striking at initiative, but usually they're fists. So
Yeah.
every Legion has about the same chance with their standard units against a Terminator squad. It really, at that point, it boils down to weapon loadout and your Legion special rules.
Right. But for instance, if you're me and you're hitting first, then you want to keep pushing that hitting first advantage. That's the only advantage I have, right?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
But
well,
what
and
I'm-
again, that's what you have to consider. Do I want this particular tactical squad or this particular assault squad to be focused on going first and killing things, or do I want it to be this is how I take down Terminators?
Yeah, no,
Right.
exactly. Like, because my point, Gray, was that your bonus to initiative doesn't matter against a unit of Terminators that are all going at initiative 1 anyway.
Right.
I mean, you're no different capabilities-wise than any of my standard tactical squads.
Right.
Like, other than what actual war gear. The fact that you go first is immaterial. That was my point.
Oh, okay. And yeah. Unless the Terminator squad has lightning claws in there, then you want to go first.
Yeah, I mean, you
exactly.
might have a dude in your Terminator squad that has lightning claws. I think my list is going to have 2, but still, that's out of the entire unit. Number one, you're still going to get your attacks if you go at I4. If you have some other thing, but and you just don't put those guys up front to die to the lightning claws first.
True.
Right.
It
If
really
I'm
depends.
charging,
Like,
I'm
I have.
I5 and then I6 in the challenge.
Oh yeah, but I don't remember the last time I saw someone playing Heresy where they took a full unit of Lightning Call of Terminators.
Doesn't happen very often.
No,
Really
it's too one-dimensional.
I definitely do not have a unit of Lightning Claw Terminators sitting in my display case downstairs that I painted last spring.
Oh yeah, they're in a display case. They're not playing against anyone. I've got a full unit. Well, that's not fair. They're all in Indominus armor, but I do have a unit of Lightning Claw Terminators back in I think 6th or 7th edition. I don't remember which, but a special book for the Space Wolves came out called the Champions of Fenris, and they had a special unit in there specifically for the Void Claw Terminators, and they were just Space Wolf Terminators, all double lightning claws, and their big deal was that you could choose what turn they deep struck, and they didn't scatter. So you're right up in someone's grill with a unit of just slice and dice Terminators. Like, yeah, they cannot do anything the turn that they jump in because they have no long range firepower. But like, if you have a unit of 5 or 10 Terminators all with lightning claws directly in front of you, like, you are forced to do something.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I run one of my Terminator squads is Lightning Gate. For instance, I use them for infantry.
Yeah.
I
That's
think
not a
they're the
bad way
best
to
thing
do
to
it.
slice bread now. It's a pretty good way to do it, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again,
that comes down to
armor.
I think that when and if the new edition comes out and you start seeing some of the revamps, reworks to the legions, I think that you'll either they will change how the power weapon mechanic works in total, or they will change the points values, because right now I just don't see a standard reason why you would take lances. Everything else I can see a real
I
good
agree with
argument
you.
for.
I think lances are purely aesthetic, and then you have to work to make them good. I think that's the point we're coming to. Is lances you have to work to make them good. Everything else is good on their own merit.
They stand on their own, and they will function in basically any list. They are just made better by your special rules.
Right, whereas the lances, it's good in only those particular circumstances, and otherwise you just may as well not.
Exactly. Yeah. Like
Right.
all of the list examples we've given, like, makes lances usable and even good in some cases, but it would also make everything else, all the other ones, better in their own regard
Yeah,
as well.
it wouldn't be better than anything else. Yeah.
But it, like, even if I didn't have Rights of War and I didn't have my Legion special rules, and we just had, unit on unit, with the same gear, like, odds are, like, the units with the swords and mauls and axes would function better than the lances in basically every scenario.
They're gonna kill more things more reliably.
Except the only difference is the only scenario where the lances would win is when the lances get the charge first.
Sure.
But yeah, that's just they've
Yeah.
been poorly done for, at least since 5th edition.
I agree.
5th
Yeah,
edition
they've been bad
40K.
since that.
I don't remember what their rules were in 4th. So they've been bad. They've been included solely because of the aesthetic choice and the fact that they already existed on some models.
Yeah.
Sure.
I'm actually kind of surprised they didn't just say, like, you can use spears as either axes or swords. Like, that actually, now that I've said that out loud, that would actually kind of be a cooler way to do it, I think. Like, if you take a lance, or you can choose which one to use, which profile to use at the start of the game, or
Like a
something.
1-hand, 2-hand profile.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, if you do it like
What if you just
the
give
White
1-hand,
Scars
2-hand
Power
thing?
Glaive, where they have two different profiles
the
for having
1-hand,
one and
2-hand,
two-handed.
Yeah. But you have to
That'd be
choose
cool, but
that at, like, army creation or whatever. But that I think that would actually be a little bit more convoluted than is necessary.
Yeah, then if you have more than one unit and they're different.
Yeah, exactly.
What? Heresy being
then
convoluted?
you're that guy.
Never.
I mean,
No one wants you to be that guy.
I don't find it to be nearly as convoluted as, like, 9th edition Warhammer, but that's just me.
Yeah. So I mean, does anybody have any final thoughts on power lances and mauls and how you might be sleeping on them?
I think if a final thought is, if you can take multiple power weapons on a character, like it's advantageous to, I don't see why you wouldn't necessarily take something like a lance or a maul.
Yeah, because I've heard of people doing like Paragon Blade and Power Fist on their Praetors because they're both specialist weapons, and then you have
what about
Strength 8 when needed. So yeah, that's a thing that you could do.
It's
or
usually
you could do Chaplain with axe and lance, for instance.
Yeah.
If he gets his charge off, great, lance. If he's getting beat up with a bunch of Terminators with Power Fists, an axe.
I pretty regularly take axes on my chaplain. They are just, unfortunately, a lot of the preset models that you get usually come with a maul.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of the conversation, is just, the model availability, and being able to buy something that has options versus buying something and then having to go convert after the fact. That definitely plays a role in the choices that players make, and what their army ultimately has, because a lot of players aren't ever going to take lances, even if they were fantastic, simply because, like, where the hell am I going to get them?
Right.
There is definitely an accessibility question, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that all of the power weapons, I think they all have a place. Unfortunately, lances are just demonstrably at the very bottom. Like, there are definitely ways to make them work. There are. We've talked about some. Those are like super valid, but generally, in a like all comers style list building perspective, there's just not a lot of reason why you would ever choose them over the reliability of the other ones.
Which is exactly why I probably will be running them from now on.
I mean,
Yeah,
if you're gonna lose anyway, might as well be flashy about it.
Right. Well, or no, and I'll be able to use that as an excuse. Be like, well, I did take all power lances, so I mean, does your victory really mean anything now?
Like, I can't remember because I don't. Are there ways to give standard like militia units like mass power weapons?
I don't think so.
Militia, you can't. You can give
Give them to Ogrins.
Well, I know you can give them axes. Can you give Ogren power lances?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know that it's specifically.
Ogrins just take power weapons. Militia Ogrins just take power weapons. You could give them all lances and be one of straight 6 lances running around.
That would just be funny. Because my in my dwarf militia, they've all got axes. Because they're the difference between initiative 3 and initiative 1 is nothing the vast majority of the time, unless you're going up against other like mortal armies. So
the take-home point there is, if you want to be an absolute Chad and run power lances on your Ogrins, send us a picture of it.
I would love to. I would love to see that. Like, actually, though, those Gray, those feudal guard Ogrins that I did for you.
Yeah.
I think that those would actually look kind of cool with lances, because they're kind of built up as like they're in knightly armor anyway.
Yeah,
I think those look really good.
Speaking of sending us pictures of Ogrins with power lances, how can someone go about doing that?
Well, I'm glad that you asked, Eric. Also, if anybody has any thoughts out there in the internet land on how you might make use of power lances or power mauls as opposed to axes or swords, go ahead and send it to us at argeltalkpodcast@gmail.com.
God. Some demon in the warp is like, why are people sending me these pictures?
argeltal@gmail.
Also, I assume we're going to post this on like Facebook and stuff. Put them in the comments. That would love to see all of the different conversions that you guys might have for your power weapons, or anything that's kind of out of run of the mill sort of stuff. Like, all of that's really interesting to us. And if you have any points that you want to make to add to the discussion, we're always looking to just have a conversation and see where everyone's head's at.
And if you're upset about us talking about your nerd screeching over Argel Tal, you can tell us about that too.
Yeah, the response will be very different.
You get two different people answering those comments.
Yep. I will send you nudes, but you don't know whose nudes. They might be mine, might be Jake's, might be mine and Jake's. might be of Jake and me as taken by Gray.
Ray, there you go.
Argel Talk podcast calendar coming 2022.
I can make those.
I can make that happen.
That would be a conversation. But yeah, no, I think we've had some good conversations. A lot of really good points from everyone. Definitely look forward to doing this again. Also, if you have any ideas for new topics that you want to hear us bull about, like, send those to us as well. We try to be knowledgeable enough without
minimum competency,
without pretending to be the know-all be-alls of this hobby. We try to be knowledgeable enough to be dangerous.
Yeah, there may or may not be a modicum of research that goes into these things. Who knows?
I walked past some heresy rule books on the way to this podcast today, so I feel like I've done enough research to know.
Exactly. And with that, guys, I think that'll about do it. So thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.
Love you all. I'll love a few of you.
Some of you more than others.